Hi, I have a question for you today. Is anyone here homeless? No, of course not. But what does it even mean to be homeless? I'm sure everyone here has their own definition of homelessness, but most people associate homelessness with, well, poor people in the bunks, sleeping under bridges and on park benches. However, this is not always the case. In fact, this is very rarely the case. This is due to a rise in popularity in a thing called the modern nomadic lifestyle. Some of you probably have heard of it, and most of you know it indirectly. The award-winning Oscar-winning movie called Nomadland is entirely based in nomad reality, while the very popular nowadays media trend, social media trend, van life, is a great example. So there are various types of modern-day nomads, but they are all joined by one trait, that is, they do not lead the traditional lifestyle, which could be described as a full-time job, a mortgage, a house, a marriage with kids, etc. But they live on the move. They sleep in vans, modified cars, or recreational vehicles, and use public infrastructure to sustain themselves and to satisfy their everyday needs. But there are people who choose to live this way, and others who simply don't. Let me explain. So, after the Great Recession of 2008, America experienced a huge surge in popularity of what's called transient living. People lost their investments, as people saw their investments vaporize, saw their savings crumble, and their dreams fade away. Americans who followed societal norms for their entire lives and worked to achieve some sort of happiness, some sort of success, lost all due to some incomprehensible market crash. And some of them were even set to retire soon after 2008, but were unable to do so because they lost all of their retirement savings in what's called 401k crashes, which are invested retirement funds that are set to cash out on a certain date. But that's not the end of it. Younger Americans were affected as well, most commonly by house foreclosures, by job cutbacks, or even with bankruptcies. Well, naturally, millions of Americans were affected by the Great Recession, but only a slight percentage of them chose to give up all they had and hit the road. Nevertheless, the subculture grew significantly. There are numerous examples of poor people exhausted by life, that were so disappointed with what the normative lifestyle had to offer, and let down by healthcare, education, or social security, they chose what seemed to be the last resort: work camping. And being sort of outcasts of their society, an alternative way of living, van dwelling, looked very appealing. But work camping, van dwelling, what does it really mean, I ask? Work camping, as the name suggests, is a combination of working and camping. Work camper nomads drive around the country in search of seasonal job opportunities and while RV camping. They often perform physical labor such as harvesting fields, warehouse work, or work by tourist attractions, in return for which they receive a free campsite with all needed utilities and, for example, additional financial compensation. This lifestyle offers great mobility also, as they are never bound to a certain place in the world. They can move seasonally. For example, many work camper nomads gather fruit on the northern harvest fields in the USA during the summer, and when winter comes, they drive south in search of more pleasant, more amicable temperatures, and, for example, pre-Christmas warehouse work. This may sound all nice and free, but in reality, it's a very challenging and exhausting lifestyle, very insecure as well, as they often perform very physically demanding and exhausting jobs in return for minimum wages that don't even allow them to sustain themselves, to satisfy their bare human needs. And also, they are left with those people who ended up in a situation in their life where it seems as the last hope, as the best thing that they could do is to leave everything behind and hit the road. There are people who do it from a variety of different reasons, such as, for example, they are bored with the routine, they are looking for adventures, they simply want to see the world. So these people decide to buy an old used van and renovate it nicely and go hunt for life-changing adventures. So this sites are definitely not for the older and poorer people, but rather for young adventure and adventure risk takers. And their reasoning is completely different than these of work hunters. They are not forced to live this way, but they do it rather willingly. The same goes with digital nomads. Well, these people are truly having a time in their life, as they can work from different places around the globe using new technology. Their lifestyle seems very tempting because it provides one with countless possibilities, because one can just pack a suitcase to your laptop and go wherever you wish. It allows one to, for example, they are also very location independent because they can work from various places, such as, for example, we could go to Thailand, spend 6 months there, and then spend a few months in Warsaw, then work from Argentina, go visit Bali, and so on. So now we've seen that there are what is the modern nomadic lifestyle, and that there are two sort of sides to it. Firstly, we have people who are battering their life. Is it the result of a painful divorce, a tragic illness, a financial disappointment, a house foreclosure, whatever it is that prompts them to go for what seems to be the last resort, so working on buying an old van, renovating it, and looking for ways to make some quick money. On the other hand, we have people who are not forced to live on the road, but do it willingly. For example, but do it willingly. Do it willingly because they look for adventures, or we have digital nomads who choose to work from home at the Bahamas rather than from a boring office. So at this point, the answer to my initial question, is life on the road a disaster or blessing, it may seem quite obvious, as work camping pensioners, old people who are looking for the last possibility that's available to them could be described as a disaster. And the life of young dream followers truly looks like a blessing, a dream come true. But it turns out that the answer to this question is not always that straightforward, as van dwellers often end up completely disappointed by the videos they saw online, by the amazing stories they heard, and that they come to a conclusion that this lifestyle just simply doesn't suit them. That some people will simply need the society to feel comfortable and secure. And at the same time, according to research done by a journalist, Jessica Ruder, many work campers who are forced to live on the road end up here in every for their life because they finally find freedom and happiness. So the feeling of entrapment by the system and dissatisfaction with the popular 9 to 5 is very common nowadays, as according to the American Psychiatric Association and the effect of depression at work audit conducted by IPSOS, almost a quarter of US workers and managers have been, in fact, diagnosed with clinical signs of depression stemming from work-related reasons. That's why the modern nomadic lifestyle has so much to offer for people who are disappointed by what life brought them. They followed what society told them in their entire life, and they found nothing but unhappiness. So I hope I managed to catch your interest into the modern nomadic lifestyle and show you its diversity. show you its diversity. I showed you that there are poor, distressed people who are forced to live on the road, but also there are other people who choose to do so willingly and not to escape the system, not as the last resort, but do it to find adventures or find joy in the life. And we have established that in both cases, one can end up feeling right, free and happy, but also insecure, uncomfortable and scared. So that's why it doesn't matter whether you choose to do something or if fate brings you to this point in your life. What truly matters is that you tried it and that you gave it your best. And that's the final thought I want to leave you with today. Life on the road may be fantastic, maybe blessing for once, and maybe horrible, maybe a disaster for others. And maybe even some of you should try it. Or is there anything else that you wanted to try throughout your life, but for some unknown reason didn't? So the only way to find out if it's right for you is to actually try it, give it your best. And it's up to you to decide whether it will be a disaster or a blessing. Thank you.